Hello and welcome to the Smart Money Show. I'm your host, Dave Field, and I hope you'll want to subscribe and want to like this video. But the idea of the Smart Money Show is really to give you the tools and the help and the guidance to help you achieve your goals. So the only criteria for being smart with your money is that it leads towards goals and ambitions you have in your life. So with that, today I'd like to talk about controlling your spending. Now, controlling your spending is one major way that you're able to find the money that you need to put towards other goals. So some of those goals may be paying back debt, paying off credit cards, but other goals could be wanting to take a vacation, wanting to buy a new home, wanting to save for a car. There's so many things so many goals that you may have with your money. You may want to go back to school. But controlling your spending is one major factor in trying to find the money. So the other side of that is making more money, but often making more money and having the same spending patterns doesn't actually equate to finding more money to put towards your goals. So learning to control your spending is one of the best places to start. So I wanted to talk to you about emotional spending. Now, emotional spending is basically all spending. However, there's kind of emotional spending that's an ongoing thing every day, every week, every month. And then there's those major purchases that were emotional at the time of the purchase, but now you're kind of stuck with those decisions. So that is purchasing a home, leasing, financing a car. Those are things where you were emotionally charged when you made those decisions, but now that the emotions have subsided and you're really just stuck with a payment, a mortgage, that sort of thing. So there's consequences to that initial spending decision, but now you're just living with those decisions. Then there's the emotional spending that occurs daily and weekly. And those are the decisions that, based on how you're feeling that day about your life, about your family, about your friends, about your work, those are decisions you make at the moment. And those decisions are extremely emotionally charged. And it's because of that emotional charge that often people will forget in a week or 2 weeks what they spent some of their money on. But at the time, it seemed extremely important and even extremely justifiable of an expense. So to better explain kind of how emotions get into your spending decisions, I'd like to share a personal story of my own, and we'll come back after this quick clip to talk about what you can do to get better control on your emotions and your spending. I help people manage their money for a living. And even though I'm a certified cash flow specialist and a certified financial planner, I have the same emotional difficulties with my money that everyone else has. So I'd like to tell you a little story of how emotional spending, recent emotional spending, has been done in my life. So my grandparents, all four of them, meant the world to me. Now my grandfather, he passed away over 25 years ago when I was 13. And it had a profound effect on my life. Now, my grandfather loved his CB radio, and this is it here. He would talk on it all the time. I have vivid memories of him speaking in his bedroom on his CB radio, and I still remember his call name. He would always say "Sugar Bear out," and I had a huge emotional attachment to those memories. So, fast forward many years later, when my grandmother passed away, and the house was sold, I took the CB radio. Now, it took me a bit of time to work up to figure out how to make it work and get it set up, but I got it set up. So I turned it on, and that is actually the first time I've ever had something come through on that radio. Right now, actually. That's pretty funny. But I hooked it up, got it all set up, have his old microphone here, and then nothing. Silence. So I watched YouTube videos, worked it out, all that sort of stuff. Couldn't get it working. Nothing. Couldn't hear anything. Now there would be static and that sort of stuff, but I would not have any communication going through on it. So I figured it was 25 years old. It was sitting in their basement. Probably doesn't work. Something wrong with it. So I invested in a new antenna. So that was on sale, and I got a few $25 for it. Or I paid about $25 for it. And brought it home, hooked it up, still nothing. So I was looking into maybe I needed a new microphone because you can't communicate unless you have the microphone. Instead, what I did is I found this on sale. This is a portable CB radio. So I would hook this up, trying to find someone on the line. This cost me $50. It was on sale. Great deal. It was regularly $100. I have taken this radio not only around the house, I've put it in my car. I have a car adapter for it and driven around on the highways with it on. I've taken it up north when I went up north once, and I've taken it out east when I recently went to Eastern Canada. And, so in total I've spent about $100 on something that I inherited. Not a whole lot of money, but my final conclusion has been that people don't use CB radios. They just don't seem to be something people use, and if they don't use them, there's no one to speak to. And I can buy all the equipment in the world, no matter how much I want it to work, for that emotional attachment I have. And to bring Sugar Bear back to life, it's never going to happen. So that's just an example of my recent spending, completely emotional, and who knows? I can't believe I actually got a little bit of noise on there just now when I started filming this. So maybe my luck will change, and CB radio will come back in fashion, and we'll have and I'll have a chance to bring Sugar Bear back to life. But I don't know. So when it comes to the emotional spending and what I just shared there about wanting to fix up that CB radio, was at that moment it seemed extremely important to me. Like, it was my laser focus. I was highly focused on wanting to get that going. I mean, it had been over 25 years. Why was it urgent? I don't know, but it became an emotional, urgent need for me to look after. And the key about it is really just understanding that occurred. And I mean, the $100 was not make or break for me and my family, but I did have $100 I could probably better spend on something that works. Um, because what am I going to do with those CB radios now that nobody is on CB radio? So uh, it's just the reality. So what I'd like to go through is just a few of the other types of emotional expenses that um, places where you're definitely emotionally spending. So times when you'll be doing that is if you go out for when you go grocery shopping. That's definitely a huge emotional um, time, right? And the reality is, most of us will likely work during the day and do our grocery shop in the evening, maybe on the weekends. But as your day goes on, we have less and less willpower to resist purchasing items. So in the morning, you might have more willpower not to buy certain things, but as the day goes on, you might get into more junk food, food that isn't as good for you. You make better choices, like more expensive food, pre-made food. Um, and then if you go to fancier grocery stores that are also trying to sell you kitchenwares and big screen TVs and electronics, then the temptation is just even greater. And that's often why, um, Costco can be so dangerous for your spending. Things may appear to be a great deal, but on a cash flow basis, um, it can really hurt you. Other times would be eating out at restaurants or just getting quick food. Again, it's expensive, and those decisions tend to occur in the evening. Entertainment, alcohol, any kind of unplanned travel or mini vacations where you kind of went on the spur of the moment, or someone asked you to join them and you didn't want to say no. Um, Evenings out, children's activities, if you have children, kind of those more spur of the moment activities, going to a play gym or, going to an amusement park or museum. Those sorts of things are an expense that are often done uh, without a lot of planning or saving towards doing those activities. For me, electronics is huge, and I guess the CB radio kind of played into that. But that's where I have to watch it, right? I have to make sure that if I'm feeling down, that I don't get picked up by something. It doesn't even have to be super expensive, but still, it all adds up. Your hobbies, unnecessary clothing, gifts, going to coffee shops. Um, Definitely, if you like your coffee, spend money on the coffee, but it can be multiple trips to a coffee shop, or it could be, um, you know, it's just gaining control on that, right? Um, Impulse purchases, I find like dollar stores are very good for this. Everything seems really cheap and inexpensive, and yet then there's $25 gone. Um, and then also you just want to watch, you know, the emotion of getting a great deal, right? It can be very exciting when you get a great deal or find a great deal on something on sale. And so emotionally you want to take advantage of that. And I have this difficulty too, right? You want to take advantage of that great sale because it could be gone. Um, but on a cash flow basis, I really couldn't spend that amount of money. So given all this emotional spending, how can we better control it? Because if we can better control it, then we shrink what I call our financial black hole. And the financial black hole is, the money that is leaving you without you realizing you're spending the money on it, right? And that's all emotionally based. And the emotional side of that means that you actually could be spending a lot of money that you don't realize, and it's a great place to start to try and find money to put towards your other goals. And people's financial black holes can often be thousands and thousands of dollars on a yearly basis. So better controlling that means you can really find the money to put towards your choices. So to go through some of these steps, then I'd like to go over to my whiteboard, and I'll just pull that up for you. So what I'd like to do is, the first thing in controlling your emotional spending is you'll want to switch to cash. So that's number one. So any of those emotional spending items, you'll want to do it in cash. So anything that I have already talked about, you'll want to be done in cash, right? Your automatic bills for your electricity, for your mortgage, if you have one, or car payments, or even gas, right? Most people, unless you're going on a lot of weekend trips, gas is not really emotional. You're not spending more on gas or buying more gas too much because it's on sale. If it is cheaper, then you can only fill up your tank usually, right? So that's not the emotional expenses. So for that, if you have it on any kind of automatic billing or you're paying for it in some other way, that's not really the concern. The concern are those items, those spending decisions you're making on a daily and weekly and monthly basis that are going to fluctuate. That should be paid for with cash. So the other part is, well then, when should I take out the cash? So when you want to take out the cash is weekly. You want to manage this emotional spending on a weekly basis. And the reason for that is no matter who it is, and I would be the exact same way, if you take out enough cash for the entire month, you're going to have that spent within a week or two. It's really hard to manage money on a long-term basis. And if you run out of money, you're going to just dip into other sorts of savings or debt, and you're not going to be making any progress. So really doing this on a weekly basis, you can't get into too much trouble. So, especially when you're starting out, it's not going to be perfect, but you really want to manage that to try and get through the week. And I would recommend taking out money from the bank in cash on the day where you usually would do your most important emotional spending, right? So that would be probably when you get groceries, set yourself up for the week, that sort of thing. So for myself, I have that money on Fridays, so that I have the money then to do my groceries on the weekend. So you want to do that on a weekly basis. And then if you run out of money, it's not to say you can't access other money, but the best thing about the system is having it in cash really teaches you, lets you know that you're running low, and you can make different spending decisions because your spending is lower, or the amount of cash you have is lower. And it also provides a warning that something's gone awry. So if you are constantly running out of money every week, then there's something you're doing with your spending, or perhaps your weekly amount isn't the right amount. It might be too low. So that could be another factor in that as well. So then the third thing that you need to know or figure out is how much do you take out weekly. And this is really depends on a lot. This depends on how much income you have, how much you want to save, how much realistically you can get by on. Really you want to constrain your spending enough so that you're able to make progress and save money, but you also don't want it to be so difficult that it just doesn't work and practically doesn't work, right? And also it has to be a little flexible enough so that you can enjoy life, right? You want to, if you like lattes, you can still have your lattes, right? You just manage some of the other spending for that week, right? Or if something's on sale and you really kind of like it or would like to do it, then you cut back in other areas on that week. So, and then if you're low income, middle income, or have a high income, this amount can vary as well, right? But there's a certain minimum that, um, you have to live off of, right? So I would say what you want to aim for is probably between 200 on the low end to $400 a week on these emotional spending items. Now, depending on what you're spending right now, that may seem extremely difficult. Again, it's more about putting some sort of constraint on it rather than the exact amount. Now, when I do cash flow plans for clients, we will work on a specific amount and coach towards getting that amount so that the whole rest of the plans and goals work out, right? But really, you want to try and aim between that, and that's going to depend. Are you single? Do you have are you married? Do you have children? Or are your children living at home with you, or do you have other people living with you that you feed and look after? So, that $200 to $400 is just kind of a guideline, but obviously the smaller you can make that weekly amount, the more you're going to have left over to put towards other goals, right? So it's a balance that way. But having that amount in cash weekly just puts a check on things so that you're not doing a budget and you're not writing down everything you're spending money on, because it's impossible to keep track of everything dollar for dollar. So this really just allows you to know that your spending is going off a bit, right? And then what you want to do then with that is you just want to test it out, right? See how that works. And so what should happen is, if the amount is an appropriate amount based on your income, then you should start seeing some money. May not be huge amounts, but it could be quite substantial amounts saving up in your main checking account or wherever your income goes into, that is left over. And then that's the money that you can use towards debts or other goals and that sort of stuff, right? But you'll get kind of a sense as to how much progress you can make there, right? And if you find that your weekly amount is really large, then you don't really have to or you're not going anywhere near that, you have money left over every week, then you maybe want to shrink that down, and then you might be able to build up even more in the other account. But the idea with the weekly amount is that that's money there that you've determined you can spend. So if you have $25 or $50 extra that week, and you want to do something more with that, like either you're going to the movies or you want to go out to dinner, or I know that may not cover that many dinners if you're going with your family, but or maybe over 2 weeks you combine the amount that you've saved, then you can spend that and splurge on that and feel confident that you're still going to be reaching your other goals and that your spending is predetermined and purposeful. So that's a bit of what you can do to control your emotional spending. Again, nobody is perfect at it. I'm definitely not. As what happened with the CB radios, but you can try your best. You can do your best, and really, I have found working with clients that this is a huge way to find large sums of money to really make that difference, right? Sometimes you just feel like you're spinning your wheels, you're not getting anywhere, and this really allows you to make some significant progress. So try this out. Let me know how it goes. You can contact me through questions at smartmoneysociety.com or through Twitter at smartmoneysoc.com, or not .com, smartmoneysoc, and let me know. And also in this show, my intention is to, near the second half of the show, or if we get to the point where we have so many questions, do the entire show just where I answer your questions. So we have about 5 minutes or so left in the show, and I do have one question here that I think we might have time for that I'd like to go through. And we'll just, I'll just find the question. All right, so this question came from Veronica. I won't give any more details about her than that, but what she says is, I have a mortgage, a line of credit, and a couple of credit cards, and a car loan, and I want to know what's the best way for me to pay them off. So this is a common question. Now, obviously, the most important factor in this is finding the money in order to make a significant dent in your debt. Now, as Veronica, assuming that you have been able to find the money to put towards, there are some different strategies that you can do to help pay this off. What I'd like to do is, I'll go back to my whiteboard here, and I'll share that with you again. And so there's kind of two strategies. So one strategy is known as the snowball, and the other is the avalanche. The idea of the snowball is you get an emotional reward and you start with your smallest debt, so the debt with the lowest amount, and you put as much on it as possible while still paying minimums or the required payments on the other debts. But you want to put as much extra on that lowest payment to eliminate it, and then what you were putting on that, you roll that into the next lowest debt. And the idea with this is that you get an emotional benefit. You're motivated because you're eliminating debts. So that's one strategy, and I find that one works very well. And then the other strategy is the avalanche. And so with avalanche, you want to take your highest interest debt, so the debt that's costing you the most in interest, and you want to pay that off as much as possible. So again, you're still paying the minimums on all your other debts, so you don't want any trouble there. But the idea is that you're eliminating the most expensive debt. So from a mathematical point of view, it may make the most sense. So now there's a lot of discussion, which one should you do, how should you do it, and really it's kind of doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because both kind of tackle the same kind of thing. So I think you can pay down the highest debt and also get that emotional and motivational benefit as well. So let me go through how you combine that. So let's just take, for example, so let's say you have a mortgage and it's, say your mortgage is at 4.5% and you have $300,000 outstanding on it. All right, so that's the mortgage. So let's assume there's a line of credit, and let's say it's at 7.5%, and you've got $24,000 on it. Then you've got credit card 1, which is at 19%, and let's say that's $8,800 on that one. Then you got credit card 2, which is also at 19%, and on that one you have $12,000. Let's say you have a store credit card, and that's at 29%, and let's say you owe $2,000 on that one, and then let's say you have a car loan, and maybe you had a really good financing deal on that, but you still owe $12,000. So with this, really how you want to tackle it is it's kind of the same thing. So if you do the avalanche, well, your highest interest debt is this store card here, 29%. Well, it's also your lowest amount at $2,000 here. So it's kind of the exact same thing. So you're accomplishing both. So pay that off, get the motivational benefit of having that debt gone, and then also mathematically it works out because that's your highest debt, right? So then the money you were putting towards that one, snowball, move that towards your next debt, right? So if you look here, you have the 2 credit cards. Well, one's a bit lower here, but they're both 19%. So it works out, or I mean, it could be a little bit different, 18.5%, but roughly it's pretty close. So mathematically, it makes sense to pay that debt down because it's still high, but then that's your next lowest debt. So then you work, get that motivation to pay that off, and then you tackle your next one, right, which is the credit card, and then you would have your line of credit. Now again, these numbers are picked out of the air. I don't know your circumstances, Veronica, but that's kind of the method of how you want to pay that off. Your mortgage is likely set, so you don't want to, you definitely can put more towards it if that's a goal of yours to pay that down faster, but your other debts should be eliminated well before then. And then if you look at the car loan payment, which, sorry, may not show up on the screen. Here, I'll move that up. The car loan payment, then you really want to, depending, in Canada, often a car loan through a dealership, you're paying all the interest up front. So merging that or consolidating that or advance paying that is not really, doesn't have the same benefit because you've already paid all the interest on it. There is a benefit to having that paid off and having it gone, but you might be better if you have money in addition to just start putting that into a savings, so that if you need a new car in the future, you have more cash available for it. So anyways, that's a little bit how you can the order of paying down debts. That seems to have the most emotional and financial benefit to doing it this way. But again, you need to find the money. So I hope you found this show helpful on controlling your spending and looking at your emotional spending. And please subscribe. Please like it if you liked it. Hopefully you didn't dislike it, but if you did, well, that's good for me to know too. And I hope to see you again next week, next Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, when we go live again. Thanks very much, and